Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Radio Free Wall Street. And this broadcast is about Donald Trump. What a surprise. And he's had quite a week. Besides the fact that we have now been told definitively that Mueller now feels like he has enough information and enough justification that he's going to file charges on Donald Trump and bring an indictment against him, which is something that scholars have debated about whether constitutionally he can do. And there's nothing that says that a sitting president cannot be indicted, although that's Justice Department procedure up to now. The story we have is that the evidence is so overwhelming that they feel like they have no choice. And Donald Trump, I understand, was absolutely outraged by that. But his bad week doesn't just stop there. We've been told definitively again by people in the Cuomo's New York government that says that they are rapidly expanding their investigation of Donald Trump, his enterprise, his children, and his associates on numerous felony criminal charges that Donald Trump can't pardon. Now, if that wasn't enough, the next thing is that Donald Trump, you may recall, insulted my intelligence. I don't know about yours. Well, I know about yours, but the Trump chumps, I'm sure, didn't catch it. He declared that Kim Jong-Nunchucks is no longer a nuclear threat to mankind, which was laughable because Kim Jong-Nunchucks is actively expanding his nuclear weapons production program. He is actively enriching uranium, and he is actively producing a stockpile of ICBMs. And interestingly enough, another story is not being told. Now, we add on top of that Donald Trump's victory lap yesterday where he declared that he had a great deal in a NAFTA negotiation with Mexico, which, as the details unwind, is another nothing burger. Now, Donald Trump's on the attack, and that's what I want to warn you about. Several things across my desk today have really concerned me. Donald Trump said that Facebook, Twitter, Goggle are treading on very, very troubled territory, and they have to be careful. And, again, he is threatening against that media, saying that the social platforms are treading very, very troubled. I said, be careful. Google has really taken advantage of a lot of people, and I think that's a very serious thing, and it's a very serious charge. They better be careful because they can't do that to people. Now, Donald Trump is reporting that in responding to the fact that they have a negative view of Donald Trump and that there are many very negative stories appearing on social media. Now, that's nice, but that's not the prerogative of the censor-in-chief unless he fancies himself a dictator. I am very, very troubled about Donald Trump's movements away from a constitutional government. I'm very troubled by his lack of understanding, respect for our great institutions like the freedom of the press. And I'm even more troubled by the fact that I feel that Donald Trump's becoming more of a psychopath every day. He had a meeting with evangelical leaders at the White House, and he said that Republican losses in this year's midterms would lead to liberals violently overthrowing his administration's accomplishment for the Christian community. Well, another crusade, huh? He said this November 6th election is very much a referendum on not only me, it's a referendum on your religion. It's a referendum on free speech and the First Amendment. And he added that there is an unbelievable amount of hatred and anger for you and for me and for my family, probably because of what we've accomplished. Well, I have to be honest with you, Donald Trump hasn't accomplished shit, except maybe giving away $1.6 trillion tax-free to corporate big shots. That was part of what Goldman Sachs wanted. Donald Trump has no peace negotiation or allying the world's fears of a nuclear superpower in Kim Jong-Nunchucks. Donald Trump has accomplished nothing on the trade front. The economy is in shambles. I might remind you that Obamacare has not been repealed. I might remind you that the public works program, where they're going to fill a pothole in every street and put Donald Trump's name on, maybe his handprints, and a smiley face has not happened. So what are the accomplishments of Donald Trump's administration? And the answer is divisiveness, cronyism, allowing a great Russian expansionism, cobbling our country with the steel tariffs, and basically destroying business left to right, especially small businesses. Now, Donald Trump is playing two very dangerous cards. In fact, three of them. One, he's playing the race card, and he's race baiting. Second, he's playing the religious right and how the liberals are going to take away your rights that are hard won by me. And then he's playing a very dangerous one where he is the enemy of the media. And he wants to shut down the fake news that is adjudicated by himself. And he's moving in a direction that I feel is ugly and getting uglier. Now, Trump has frequently tried to connect liberals to the far-right groups of anti-fascisms and the group that has been responsible for violence at various rallies, as you might recall. Now, what they want to do is they want to try to use this fear-mongering to stop what could be very great wins by the Democrats in the upcoming midterm elections. I think Donald Trump's a desperate man. I think he is doing desperate things in desperate ways. And I want to warn you that he is a threat to our very freedoms. I'll go so far as to tell you that I now feel that Donald Trump is a Manchurian candidate. I feel like he's against everything and everyone and everything that's right in the world. I believe he's a danger to mankind. I believe Donald Trump could take away your freedoms. And I know for a fact that Donald Trump will bring on the Trump depression. I know Donald Trump will reside over a failing economy with a steepening yield curve, rising interest rates. And I believe Donald Trump will use his bully pulpit and continue to erode trust among Americans for each other. I think he wants to sow discord. I think he wants to race bait. And I think he wants to curtail freedoms of the press as he judges those freedoms to be appropriate or not. Look, he had a major media outlet that was on his payroll that was hiding stories about Trump's love child, Trump's great crimes, questions about Trump's finances, and he paid him a lot of money to do that. So this man has no respect for the free press. He has no respect for freedom. He doesn't respect for anything. Donald Trump is for Donald Trump. And I want to warn you that the trends I see are extremely dangerous. And I've been associated in the past with the rise of fascists. And I don't believe Donald Trump has any love for people. I don't believe that Donald Trump has any understanding of America, our greatness, or our great freedoms, or the way things work. And I think Donald Trump wants to use every tool at his disposal to undermine our democracy, ensuring that his great crimes do not come out, ensuring that he doesn't have to resign or be impeached, and trying to protect himself and his family. And I regard him as the most dangerous president we've ever seen. I never thought I'd be speaking these words. But I see something different. I see Donald Trump, as he gets in trouble, lashing out at our institutions. I see Donald Trump trying to destroy our freedoms. I see Donald Trump trying to move America in a direction that is un-American, unpatriotic, uncalled for, and just plain wrong. And I'm shocked that no one is dealing with these issues, no one's pointing this out, no one's taking action, and that Donald Trump continues moving forward in very dangerous ways, and no one's trying to stop him. And I see Donald Trump, as he gets further along in his insanity, as he moves further away from the principles of freedom, I see him probably being the most dangerous man that's ever occupied the White House. And I fear for America. And I fear for Americans. I fear for our country. And I think Donald Trump's probably the biggest mistake we ever made. And what I find remarkable is that he's able to move so far, so fast away against our freedoms. He is so incredibly successful at pitting Americans against each other. And look, he's a master of the media. And he continues every day in every way to attempt to get the media attention off his great crimes and to try to move America into a country that we will not love or know when he gets done with it. So, yeah, I have to say to you unequivocally that I'm now at the point where Donald Trump has shaken me to my very core. Revelations of his crimes, his personnel, his closest associates coming out against him speaks volumes for the kind of man he is. And I think we all made a grave mistake that we don't hold our leaders account and we don't ask him about his credibility, his honesty, his sexuality, his business deals. You know, people like to say, well, who he has sex with is none of our business. And that's true. I admit that that's an open-minded point of view. And my problem is this. I don't really care about Donald Trump's sexuality. I don't care about Donald Trump's moves on women from the standpoint of what's his private life. What I am concerned about is Donald Trump's concern about these things and the fact he wants to hide them. So when I see that, I now come to a point where I say, well, wait a minute. His sexuality, his misdeeds, his love child, his affairs, although they are not of my concern, they are of political significance. If he's so concerned about them that people can blackmail him, and he's trying to hide it. And once you get to the point where you realize that Donald Trump's got a past that he does not want to have come out, and that people who understand his past, have proof of his past, have leverage over him, and all of a sudden, you wake up and you realize, holy shit, this is really a dangerous guy. And he's a Manchurian candidate. And he can be bought, he can be paid for, he can be bribed. And people have undue influence over him to the detriment of the country. And when you walk down that road, you wake up one day and you go, uh-oh. Let the mind run wild about Donald Trump talking about racial violence, talking about the fact that if you don't vote often and for a Republican, that, oh my God, the liberals are going to rise up and violently against evangelicals, against the Christians, and destroy them, okay? And you have to arm yourselves and fight back against those nasty liberals. Is that really the road we want to go down? Is that really true? And the answer is not. It's strictly a wounded president who every day hears the footsteps of his impeachment, who becomes more and more concerned about his great crimes, and he'll do anything to cover it up. Now, when you look at it from that standpoint, you go, holy shit, this guy really could destroy our freedoms. We could really wake up one day in a Trump hell, in a world where we're pitting neighbor against neighbor. I mean, civil wars are the ugliest wars, okay? And civil wars are something that's graping the world, okay? People break along religious lines, along ethnic lines, along racial lines. And when you look at it, you understand that, unfortunately, because of the nature of people, it's something relatively easy to do. And it's always part of the enlightened people to say, hey, listen, we can be tolerant of different people. We can be tolerant of different religions, different races, different cultures. We can be tolerant of people who eat differently than we do, live differently than we do, have different customs. And the world has enough room for all of them. And when you start making enemies of these people, when you start race baiting, that's when ugly things happen, okay? And I think Donald Trump is turning America back to an ugly past, an ugly time of ugly events that I don't think we want to live through again. And I really question whether or not we have the strength of people in America to stand up to Donald Trump. I wonder if this doesn't end very badly for all of us. And I've got to say that this focus that Donald Trump is putting on the various factions fighting against each other is something that can be very dangerous. to all of us. Now, as I've been saying to you, as we come to the conclusion that Donald Trump is very concerned about his presidency, he's very concerned about his longevity, he is really absolutely in a panic over the coming elections, that he becomes a man that can't be trusted, and he becomes a man that's a danger to himself and to our country. You know, I never thought I'd be speaking these words, but someone has to stand up and smell the coffee. Someone has got to say, look, you know, we got a very dangerous trend with this guy. He's moving us in directions that we don't want to go in. He's creating hostility and anger, and he's doing that to classically divide and conquer. I mean, Donald Trump's agenda is to stay president and get reelected and prevent his impeachment. And I again submit to you that he will do anything to anyone and anybody, to any ethnic group, religious group, racial group, in furtherance of those desires. And as the prosecutors move on him, as I like to say, the hangman cometh, Donald Trump is really feeling the heat, and I see him becoming a greater danger to himself and the country on a daily basis. And I really, 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 really want to say to you that you need to look at this thing, look at his statements, look at the things he believes to be true, look at what he says and what he's doing, and you have to walk away and say, you know, well, this is going to be a really dangerous guy. In fact, the word Looney Tune comes to mind. And, you know, is it at the point where Donald Trump can be a great danger to himself in this country? And my answer to you is, yeah. It's getting to the point where with Donald Trump, you've got to wonder how this is all going to work out. And with Donald Trump, you've got to wonder what he's willing to do to stay in power. And as I analyze this thing, the only good side I can see is fantastic opportunities because of the insanity that Donald Trump's leashing. And let me say this to you. You know, markets are my favorite thing. And I'm a creature of the market. Now remember, rah-rah markets that are going up where everybody feels good, trading almost always higher on the herd mentality, are markets that I love to see because they represent phenomenal opportunities for profit. And let me explain to you why. A rising, ever-rising market is just being driven by buyers going crazy. And when they do that, they create these bubbles. Now, bubble markets end on people all of a sudden reacting to events that they should have seen all along that they've ignored. Okay, and that's what brings you the crashes. And that's why markets go down so much quicker than they go up. And that's why the devastating moves have always been the wipeouts of the market, right? Why? Well, majorities share small amounts, the majority of people in bull markets share minor amounts of money. In the bear market wipeouts, very small groups of people share extremely large amounts of money made very quickly. Now, if you can grasp and understand that, then you understand that for a guy like me, we look and see, is the market fairly valued? What is the market not seeing that's going on? What is the mistake that's going to devastate this market? And sometimes we wait for a long time. And now we've got a market that is the longest bull market in the history of markets, the greatest up move ever, a market that has been driven by the cheapest interest rates and freest money ever, driven by a demagogue who really has not delivered the things he's promised, but he sure gives one hell of a speech. And when you realize that, then you realize that, holy shit, this market is built on an air mattress. This foundation is marshmallows. There is nothing to justify valuations at this price, and it is driven by an insanity that we've rarely seen in markets before. Now when you realize that, you say, okay, well, what is the market not calculating in that will make this party end? And we're looking at the Fed raising rates. The yield curve's gone flat. We're looking at, again, valuations that are in la-la land, companies trading at huge multiples, companies trading at these incredible high prices that have never had a profit and probably will never make one. Now you got to look at something else. And you got to look at the situation that, you've got a Donald Trump who is a popular president, a populist, who is about to be indicted. You got a president that is absolutely in a lot of trouble. And you've got a president that we don't believe can maintain his power. And we've got a market that's not seeing that. The market is not pricing in the demise of Donald Trump. The market is not pricing in his impeachment, his indictment. The market is not pricing in the fact that there's a prosecutor who's making very great gains on being able to prove a crime. And now you add to that the Federal Reserve that's raising interest rates, an economy that is going into a recession and depression, trade wars that will end up badly, and just a president who's just a complete liar and thief. Now, we've had many liars and thieves for presidents. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't get the license to be the only bullshit artist. Tricky Dick Nixon comes to mind immediately. But the difference is that the market is not understanding the risks associated with Donald Trump yet. No one is saying, well, what does the world look like if Donald Trump is impeached or indicted? Remember, impeachment is one process for removing a president. Another one is that he can be indicted by a grand jury. Of course, it'll be a constitutional crisis. But that is another way that he could be brought down. And, of course, the constitutional scholars will argue about this. But reality is that Donald Trump could face a federal grand jury. He could face a federal indictment that does not go down the road of the impeachment process. How about that? I wonder how many of you calculated it in there. To say that can't happen is, part of the fantasies of the Dershowitz interpretation. Constitutional law is not clear on what can happen to a sitting president. The law is not clear on where the power lies, and these could be another divisive blow. But let's say Donald Trump is indicted by a grand jury. He refuses to testify. We now have got a constitutional crisis. Okay, that is not something a market's going to like to see. Whether that action goes anywhere or not will not be the issue. It's, again, listen to me, when I look at a market, I say to myself, where's the surprise? Is the surprise up or is the surprise down? What's the event the market's not looking at that could be in the near horizon? What is the thing that will change the market's point of view and force people out of a market? And I've been in many, many stock market wipeouts, and I can tell you it's never the same thing and never the same way, but it's always something. And I think the markets are not looking at the vulnerability of the Trump administration and presidency to an economic collapse. I don't think the markets are seeing the coming recession. I think the markets are trying to celebrate Donald Trump, who is way past his sell-by date, who is way past his point of credibility. And I don't know if the markets are seeing the fact that Donald Trump presidency is really falling apart very quickly. And Donald Trump just want to make sure that he's going to be president and that he's going to silence opposition. I guess the thing that, is most alarming to me is the way he's attacking the free press with the fake news and the way he's polarizing the country. And I can tell you that kind of shit ends up with very ugly things indeed, and I think we're headed to the ugly side. So, yeah, Donald Trump has the shit scared out of me. I think that he is treading on thin ice. And I think the failure of the Donald Trump presidency, either through impeachment or through indictment, is a reality that we better face and something that I think is just around the corner. And I think when that happens, the markets will be devastated. And, what then, Batman? Well, stock market collapses are a normal part of the capitalist system. Recessions are something we've all learned to live with. Federal Reserve chairmen and committee members denying a recession is like part of what your job description is. So I'm seeing all of these bad things that are coming to fruition with Donald Trump, and I don't see any way we can save ourselves from them. And when you realize that, you go, holy shit. There is the stock market is a great big bubble, a great big balloon, and it entered into a house full of pins. And the only question I have is, which pin is it that burst the bubble? And right now, there's no way of knowing except to say it'll be one of them, and it's not going to be long coming. So that gives me my final moments with you. I want to say this to you. It would be really foolish not to understand Donald Trump's agenda. Remember, he hasn't released his tax return, his lack of candor or honesty, and the fact that we know he pulled a bunch of bullshit in plain English, okay? So how long does Donald Trump last? Well, that's something that we're never going to be able to put a date on, but we can say to each other, don't look like a hell of a lot much longer, does it? So I want you to understand that you need to price in, no matter what your opinion is, love Donald Trump or hate him, the fact that this is a president who's got many enemies, many powerful enemies, and that whether you like it or not, there's a lot of, even if you think it's made up, there is a lot of movement against him. And a president crashing and burning is a terrible thing. The disruption of a president that is fighting for his survival can be something that can be very costly to an economy. So my question to you is, are you prepared for the Trump wipeout? Are you prepared for the Trump depression? Are you prepared for Donald Trump leaving office, should we say, unwillingly? Are you prepared for a stock market that crashes, a country that enters into recession? And I think the honest answer is no, you're not. And I warn you that Donald Trump's days are numbered. Our analysis increasingly shows a really nasty president who's really very desperate, okay? Look, he claimed the victory lap that Kim Jong nunchucks is no longer a threat. That was total bullshit. He took a victory lap now with a NAFTA agreement with Mexico that is another joke. At some point, you got to wake up and go, look, this guy is going to say anything. He's going to bullshit us in any way. He's going to try to convince you what a great guy he is. He's tax break bonanza for billionaires. He's a pathological liar. And I submit to you that Donald Trump is not of the capacity to be president of the United States. I don't think he has a grasp of the issues. I believe he's an insider self-dealing. And I believe that he is the greatest threat to our freedoms that anybody has ever come along. And I want you to really think about that and embrace it. And I want you to look at it. You're smart people. You have your own opinions. But keep taking on the information. Look at the attack of the media. Look at the out lies about what's going on in the economy, what's going on in negotiations, what's going on in foreign affairs. And you got to say, you walk away and you go, holy shit, this could end very badly. Now, when you understand that, well, then you got to understand that there's also a whole lot of money to be made. Now, I hate sometimes the fact that we've got to make money as market wipe out, okay? But like I always said, a stock market wipeout is a terrible thing to waste. And I didn't do it. I'm not causing the stock market to wipe out. I'm certainly going to capitalize on it. I didn't cause a bubble economy with ridiculous amounts of money being dumped into businesses, creating instability, creating bubble valuations. But those chickens always come home to roost. And like I said, a stock market wipeout, an economic crisis, a crash, a recession, a depression is a terrible thing to waste. Along with a president who we probably should have never elected in the first place, and a president who does not have longevity. And let's face facts. Donald Trump's got a lot of freaking problems, and his problems get worse by the day. And his reaction to those problems becomes crazier and crazier. So just extrapolate this forward and ask yourself, what is this crazy man going to do next?